I moved in my apartment a week ago. The first time I got there, the owner gave me a paper with rules listed in them. The building itself is huge and have this small balcony that you can plant flowers and other stuff that you want. As I was moving my things up the lift, the light began to flicker. I got scared because it may get stuck, but I ignored it. My apartment was in the 5th floor of the building, and when I got out of the elevator, I was greeted by a long hallway. I always get paranoid when in this situation where I think I'm stuck or in an endless loop. I know that may sound crazy, but I get shivers just by thinking about it. As I opened the door to my apartment, I was greeted by a well-organized and clean apartment. Everything, and I mean everything, was in order, which I like, by the way, and the bedroom itself was very cozy. I was unpacking my things when I heard a knock on the door. I got up and looked through the peephole. A woman, maybe in her 30s, was on the other side, smiling. I opened the door and was greeted by a happy smile of a woman and a yummy smell, which I guess is spaghetti. I said hi and invited her in, and we talk a lot, and she gave the spaghetti and she left after that. Her name was Juliet. She lives just a few apartments from mine. She told me about the building and the rules that I need to follow. I asked her to wait for a while as I get the paper handed to me by the owner. She told me that no matter what happened, always follow the rules in order to live her. She also warned me that some of the rules are needed to be seriously followed, specifically Rule 10. I asked what was Rule 10, and she said read the rules written on the paper and never lose it. As she leaves, she waved at me and closed the door. I walked towards the door to lock it just as she leave. I read what was on the paper, and here is what it said. These are the rules that you needed to follow when staying in one of our apartments. 1. Do not leave any food of any kind alone in the kitchen or in any part of the apartment. 2. Never open the door if the person on the other side claims to be the mailman. Our mailman always leave the letters or packages on the mailbox installed on the ground floor and never go on any of the floors. 3. Never sleep with no light in your room. 4. You might hear screaming in the hallway, but never open the door to investigate. 5. If ever the light starts to flicker abnormally, grab a knife or any other weapon for protection and hide in the bathroom. You might hear footsteps coming toward the door. Make sure you lock the door and stay quiet and turn off the lights. Only go out if you hear your front door open and close. 6. When walking towards your apartment or towards the elevator and you feel someone or something is behind you, never look behind you and walk like you did not notice. 7. You might feel the floor shaking, but don't worry. There is no earthquake, it's just Mr. Jackson's dog, Wilbert. 8. When taking a shower and you smell a decomposing or rotting smell, turn off the shower and exit the bathroom with your towel and wait 10 minutes and enter and finish your bath. 9. Don't make loud noises to avoid Mrs. Cricket knock on your door. 10. When someone knock on your door and when looking at the peephole you see a young girl in a red bow and white dress, shout the phrase, "Go home, your parents are worried," and the girl will leave. 11. If ever Rule 10 is broken, the girl will enter your apartment and will demand raw meat. If you are in any circumstances don't have meat, you're dead. 12. If any of the rules listed are broken, contact Mr. Hendricks, our janitor, to help you. Keep safe, Mrs. Jolly, the owner. The first thing that went on my mind was how big is Wilbert to cause the floor to shake. I was taking this rule seriously and reading them again and again, and took a picture of it if ever I lose the paper. Just a few minutes later, there was a knock on the door, and the person on the other side spoke. "This is the mailman. Can you help me with something?" I froze in fear as I heard those words. The so-called mailman is knocking on my door. I walked slowly towards the door to try to look through the peephole and see who was really on the other side. But to my surprise, there was no one there, just the view of the empty hallway. I backed away from my door and went to the kitchen to drink water. Because who would not be scared when reading a set of rules? Then one of the rules just happened that fast. I tried to calm myself down and just pretended that no one ever knocked on my door. Since it was almost lunch, I decided to eat lunch at a local McDonald's, which was located a few streets from where the building is. I picked up my bag and left the apartment. I was waiting for the elevator, when I heard a faint voice behind me. I remembered the rule and pretended that I was answering a call from a friend and stepped inside the elevator once it reached my floor. I sighed in relief when the elevator closes its door and descended to the first floor. As I was the only one in the elevator, and I was getting more scared and thinking of situations, like a dead corpse beside me or a ghost that wants to strangle me to death. I finally got out of the building and took the bus to McDonald's. Just as I was getting off the bus, I heard a familiar voice calling my name. I looked both sides and I saw her, my friend Samantha. She was my best friend since kindergarten and went to college together. I ran to her and gave her a hug, and I invited her to eat lunch with me. We ordered our food and sat on one of the tables and was ready to eat. We chatted while we ate and talked about our lives after the graduation. I excused myself to use the restroom. I got up and walked towards the door when my phone rang. I picked up my phone from my bag and answered the call. It was my brother Jeremy. He would like to stay in my apartment for the night later. I agreed, but I told him to meet me by McDonald's. Just about 20 minutes, I believe my brother got to our location, and we said our goodbye to Samantha as she was in a hurry. We walked towards the bus stop and sat on one of the benches as we waited. I explained to him the rules of the apartment and to not ever break one rule to stay safe. And as I expected, he laughed and told me if I was joking. I said I was not, and told him to follow the rules if you were staying in my apartment. He agreed, and a few moments after that, our bus, which was a few moments early, got to the bus stop. We got inside and paid our pass and sit near the door and talk on how he was going in school. He told me that he was doing great and that they have a field trip just in a few weeks. We got to the building and tooled the elevator to my apartment and got inside. He took a shower and complained about a rotting smell. I jumped out of the sofa and shouted to get out of the shower and go outside. He followed my instructions and waited 10 minutes before going back inside and finishing his shower. He told me why would he go out and that he only complained about the smell. I explained that it was one of the rules that we needed to follow. It was getting late, and I told him to sleep in the couch. I advised him to put on a nightlight on because, one of the rules. Even though he always sleep with the lights off, he followed my instructions anyway. I got to my bed and closed my eyes. I woke up on a knock on the door. I walked toward my bedroom door and opened it. There, I saw my brother about to open the door, so I bolted toward him but failed to reach him in time. He already opened the door, and there she was, a young girl with a red bow and a white dress walked inside. I grabbed my brother and told him to stay behind me. The girl walked towards us, and in horror her face began to deform into a monster. A monster with long, pointy teeth and bloodshot eyes walking toward our direction. She asked in a calm and jolly voice, "Do you have raw meat?" I froze as I remembered that we don't have raw meat. My brother froze there in fear and in disbelief. She asked again, but now in an angry voice, "Do you have raw meat?" I was now crying and said, "I'm sorry we don't have raw meat." Without hesitation, she bolted towards us, and my instincts rushed in, and I pulled my brother inside my bedroom door and locked it. We both were scared. The doorknob then starts to twist back and forth as the girl tries to get in. The noises stopped. The doorknob was not moving anymore. My brother stood up and walked carefully and silently towards the door. He pressed his ear in the door when a loud crash startled him, and a hand broke through the door and without a warning grabbed my brother in the arm as he was running towards me. I tried to pull his arms off the door when he's screaming in agony as the girl bit his left hand. I opened the door and kicked her in the face. I immediately grabbed my brother's arm and rushed to the elevator. As we were running towards the elevator, I could hear the girl scream in a demonic voice. As we got to the lift, I pressed the button as the elevators headed to the 5th floor. I could hear her running towards us. I pushed my brother inside and pushed the 1st floor. Just as the door closes, I could see her running fast, still having a bloodshot eyes. Finally, the door closes. I turned to my brother, who was crying in pain, as the girl bit hard on his hand, leaving a long bite mark. As the elevator reaches the 1st floor, the door opened. I was met by the owner, Mrs. Jolly, who helped us get my brother to the hospital. She asked me how this happened, and I told her it was an accident, and she asked me one weird question. Did she took a piece?